Who's buying Pokemon cards and what's driving the craze? Some people on social media say that there's no end in sight to the sky-high prices, and others say that a crash is imminent. Hey, it's me, Charlie, and this video is called Pokemon Sells, but who's buying? If you, like me, live in Australia, you may have noticed a common trend. Yes, Pokemon cards are scarce, but when you do find them, it's usually in the form of loose booster packs. It's almost impossible to find anything else. It's extremely rare to find sealed products close to retail price at retailers now. And by that I mean sealed booster boxes, ETBs, collection boxes, things like that. I mean, you can get a Stellar Crown booster box right now from EB Games, but it'll cost you 325 Australian dollars because the recommended retail price in Australia just went up by 15% and EB Games sells above the recommended retail price now. So this leads me to a theory, and that is that at this point in the expanding Pokemon scene, that it's primarily speculators who are only really interested in sealed products for fueling the Pokemon market. It's my opinion that it's mainly Poke investors or people wanting to do some form of business, such as rip and ship, that are not only buying out products, but also paying high prices for secondary market items. Let me explain why. Let's talk about rip and ship. I think that many rip and ship content creators will not have adequate inventory from distributors alone to service their business needs. So in order to keep things moving, they might buy from the secondary market just to boost their stock levels. However, given that Rip and Ship is posed as an event and provides an interactive experience between hosts, creators, and members, I think that many people would actually be willing to pay a little bit more for products from Rip and Shippers because they're also getting an experience and get to be part of a community activity. This in turn validates the rationale of Rip and Ship businesses to buy stock at higher prices if need be, because the costs can kind of easily be passed on to consumers given there is that relationship and sense of community. Small retailers, including Pokemon vending machine businesses, may also be buying off the secondary market to fill gaps in their inventory. Have you come across any small retailers recently that have products in stock that could be considered anywhere within the realm of the recommended retail price? In my experience, their prices are always extortionately high. $220. Number 7.
Yeah, go on.
So then, are the regular base market of consumers, like you and I, paying these prices too?
Mother...
I am not, and I'm willing to bet that many other people have decided to opt out of buying right now too. Whether that's due to scarcity and high prices or that they've simply been priced out altogether. Now that the recommended retail price in Australia is $8.50 per booster pack, I'll be buying pretty selectively because that's really the upper limit per booster pack that I'm willing to pay, and I would kind of only pay that much for sets I truly love to open. Actually, I just think it's too much to pay for sets currently in print, and so many people don't have the disposable income to justify that price, especially since booster packs have been in the realm of $6 to $7 up until now at major retailers. I believe that new Pokemon investors or speculators make up the majority of buyers of sealed products at high prices at the moment. Essentially, they buy out products at the lowest available price and then sell them at higher prices straight away. They may use various methods to influence more buyers, such as social media, which then stokes further demand for the products and the prices continue to trend upwards. While the idea is to sell when the market is high and make a significant profit. This is known as a pump and dump scheme. I think what is happening right now is that waves of speculators continue to buy overpriced products because they believe that the peak is still ahead. Ultimately, the cycle will continue until the whole thing collapses in on itself, and some speculators will be left holding significantly devalued stock. In other words, I think that Poké investor speculators are fueling the Pokemon market by engaging in a cycle of buying and selling from one another, which is in turn stoked by the internet and social media hype and simply the desire to make some money fast. New Pokemon speculators come in and pay the higher price for a product, but that's okay as long as there's somebody else willing to pay slightly more for it. And I'd be willing to bet that the person most likely to pay more for it is another person who also believes that they can profit from it too. Check out my video, Count Your Crumbs, the Poké Investing Pyramid Scheme, linked at the end of this video. I think there are indications that the peak is near, but I'm no economist. I'm just a random person with 2 cents. For what it's worth though, I think one of the main indicators is that in many cases, the intrinsic value of the products doesn't really stack up to the height of recent market prices. But why Pokemon? Well, investors and speculators may seek alternative forms of investment, look to move money into different asset classes and diversify their portfolio. And alternative markets like collectibles, they're not that well regulated, so they can be kind of easy to manipulate. There's also a definite trendiness promoted on social media and a get-rich-quick ideology that comes along with flipping. People can also treat collectibles as a way of doing micro-investing because you don't necessarily need that much money to get involved, particularly with card singles. After the 2008 global financial crisis, many investors were looking to diversify their portfolios and they turned their attention to the art market. As the art market is also largely unregulated, speculators identified an opportunity. They sought out low-cost, aesthetically pleasing artwork, which focused on form or process. In other words, it could be produced systematically and fast by unknown artists. They then bought out the artworks and promoted it to wealthy contacts. A pump and dump scheme was formulated, and these artworks began to be sold or flipped in auction houses, and speculators profited. With there now being a demand for this kind of artwork, artists started catering to demand, and the term zombie formalism was born to characterize the movement. There's a lot of art world baggage surrounding the name of this movement and its general perception amongst art enthusiasts and critics. Does anyone else know where to put this? But it's basically a style of artwork that referenced or mimicked abstract expressionism and minimalist form that speculators pounced on at a low cost and were flipping in auction houses using their connections with the uber wealthy to stimulate hype and manipulate prices. A lot of speculators entered the market and it made a lot of art people very angry. And that's because it had previously been art collectors who made long-term investments in the careers of artists that had participated in the art market. Does this sound familiar? In the end, the market did cool significantly, and that was due to a host of reasons, one of which was that many speculators lacked art or art market knowledge. Another was that long-term art investors could see through the trend and they didn't see any value in it. Another element was that speculators are likely to engage in any market that might turn a profit quickly, and subsequently many moved on to invest in the rising crypto market. It's worth keeping in mind that the art market remains a changed space, and that's because an appetite has developed for new forms of market engagement. I recently read about a study in the book Nudge by Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein that told us students in a class who were given mugs with their university's insignia printed on it. Only half the students in the class received a mug and the other half received nothing. The students with mugs were then invited to sell their mugs to the students without a mug, and the students without a mug were invited to buy. Students would then select from a preset list of prices at which to either buy or sell a mug. It was observed that students who were given a mug demanded roughly twice the amount to sell their mug than students without a mug were willing to pay for it. This study has been repeated in many different settings and with different mugs, and the results remain the same. People without an item were only willing to pay about half the selling price selected by those with an item to sell. In other words, people with an item to sell generally valued it more highly than those without that item who were interested in buying thought sufficient. Consider this in the context of people buying collectibles to keep as part of their personal collection or to consume, meaning to open or to take out of the packaging, and those buying to sell for a profit. In an environment where part of the population have products to sell and the other part has nothing, where there's not an abundance of stock as there has been in the past, many people seeking to buy to keep or consume probably won't accept the prices demanded by sellers at the moment. This is why I think that the people who are actually buying products for inflated prices are those who believe that they can make a profit and place even higher value on the item. When I was at art school,
come with us now on a journey through time and space.
We had weekly exhibitions at one of the university's student galleries. Each week, a different faculty would showcase the work of students from different year levels, and every now and then, an honours student show would be thrown in. It was on the eve of one of those very honours shows that an artist with a bit of a reputation for controversy would be showing a new artwork. Because of this, it was a packed show. Well, they came as much for the free wine and beer as they did for the artwork, which is more than any aspiring artist could hope for. So the show opened and everyone was indeed talking about that artwork. The discussions were those,
yes, but one can't consider that to be art types.
People really had their knickers in a twist over it, and it was at that very moment that somebody spotted a single glove on the floor. What? People had cleared a space around it and were now suddenly very certain that this glove, in fact, had meaning. The knickers were now visibly on the verge of asphyxiating a number of the crowd members' pants. As I stood back and prepared to have my conscience assaulted by the ensuing gaggle of exhibitionists soon to tear their way into existence, the show was over, and everybody left to douse themselves in more free wine and beer at the subsequent gallery opening that evening. Don't lose your head or your undies. Thanks for watching. If you made it here to the end, then please hit the like button and leave a comment. I'd love to know your thoughts. You can also check out my other videos and subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye.